Hey everyone, welcome. ProTax Accountant knows how much you value your hard-earned pounds, so they've asked us to help break down something called the tool tax rebate.
Hmm.
Now, if you're here in the UK and you've ever, had to spend money on tools for your job, you're going to want to pay attention because this could mean putting some cash back in your pocket.
That's right. This is a tax benefit that can really add up, especially with the recent updates from HMRC.
Okay, I'm interested. Let's break it down. What exactly is this tool tax rebate? Why haven't I heard of it before?
So essentially, it's a way for employed people to get some relief on the taxes they pay, specifically for the tools they need for their job. HMRC recognizes that not all employers will cover these costs, and so they want to help out.
So it's not just like a random bonus, it's tied to what you've actually spent.
Yeah, you can think of it as a percentage of your tool expenses that come back to you. And the exact percentage depends on your tax bracket, but it's essentially HMRC saying, hey, we know you need these tools to do your job, so here's a little help.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
But I'm guessing there are some rules around who qualifies for this.
Right.
Not everyone can just claim this, right?
You're absolutely right. First and foremost, you need to be employed, meaning you get your paycheck through PAYE. And those tools you're claiming for have to be absolutely essential to your job,
Oh, yeah.
not just something nice to have.
So my comfy office chair doesn't count.
Probably not, unless you're an ergonomic specialist or something.
Right.
And another important point is that your employer can't already be fully reimbursing you for these tools.
Uh-huh.
That would be double dipping. And then, of course, you also need to have paid UK income tax.
Right.
And your job itself requires you to supply your own tools.
Okay. So employed, essential tools, no reimbursements from the boss. Got it.
Yes.
So now here's the million-pound question.
Yeah.
How much can we actually claim back?
Okay, so there are two main ways to calculate this. The first is called the flat rate expense allowance, or FREA, and they have this handy table that lists pre-approved allowances for different industries.
So like a set amount based on what I do.
Exactly. So let's say you're an electrician.
Okay.
HMRC might say electricians typically spend around 140 pounds per year on tools,
Okay.
and that becomes your flat rate allowance.
And I'm guessing that amount then gets adjusted based on my tax bracket.
You got it. So if you're in the basic, 20% tax bracket,
Uh-huh.
you would get 20% of that 140 pounds back, which works out to be 28 pounds. No receipts, no fuss.
Not bad at all. But what if I spent, way more than that flat rate allowance? What if I'm like a mechanic and I just spent a ton of money on a new toolbox?
Okay, so that's where the full expense reimbursement method comes in.
Okay.
This is for people whose tool costs go beyond that preset allowance. But here's the catch. You need to keep those receipts handy.
Okay.
But the good news is you get a percentage of your total tool expenses back, again, based on your tax bracket.
Got it. So if my super duper toolbox costs me like 300 pounds and I'm in that same 20% bracket, I could claim 60 pounds back.
Exactly. Or imagine an engineer who invested in a bunch of drills and saws and wrenches and it totaled 500 pounds. They'd be looking at a 100-pound refund. So it can really add up.
Wow. Okay, so we've talked about who can claim and how much you can claim back.
Yeah.
Now let's get down to the actual tools themselves.
Right.
What kind of things are we allowed to claim for on this tool tax rebate?
That's a good question. HMRC is pretty clear on what qualifies. They want to see tools that are, absolutely essential for you to do your job.
Right.
Not just something you might use once in a while.
So basic hand tools, like screwdrivers and hammers, power tools, drills, saws, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But it goes beyond that too. Toolboxes and storage solutions, those are also eligible, as are measuring tools like your tape measures, your level. And don't forget about safety gear as well. If your employer doesn't provide it, things like safety glasses, gloves, helmets, all that can be claimed too.
I'm starting to see how this could really add up.
Right.
What about more specialized equipment?
Yeah. Yeah, that's covered too. HMRC understands that different trades require very specific tools. So whether you're a plumber who needs pipe wrenches or a carpenter with specialized saws, those are all fair game.
This is making a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm also wondering what things are definitely not claimable.
Yeah.
Help me avoid any HMRC red flags.
Okay, that's a great point. Let me give you a quick rundown of what's definitely off limits.
Right.
Everyday office supplies like pens, paper, staplers, that kind of thing.
Okay.
That's no-go. Computers and laptops generally out unless they're used solely for your trade and not for general tasks.
Okay, so no sneaking in that new laptop.
Not unless you can prove it's 100% for work.
Right.
And of course, you can't claim for tools that you use for personal hobbies or projects. Right.
That fancy new drill you got for your weekend woodworking? HMRC is not going to help you out with that.
Got to keep work and play separate.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on, I've had some things about recent changes to the tool tax rebate.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on there?
Yeah. HMRC is always tweaking things, so it's good to stay updated.
Okay.
One of the biggest changes is actually good news for people using that flat rate method.
Okay.
They've actually increased the allowances for a lot of professions. So, for example, electricians and joiners now get 140 pounds allowance each year, which is up from 120.
Oh, nice. That's a nice bonus. Anything else that we should be aware of?
Yeah, they've also launched this new online portal for claiming tool tax rebates.
Oh, okay.
Starting in January 2025, you can say goodbye to those paper forms and submit everything digitally, including your receipts.
Online's always my preference. Less paper, faster processing. I like it.
Exactly.
What's not to like?
Exactly. And speaking of processing, they've said that it should be much faster with this online system.
Around 8 weeks compared to the 10 to 12 weeks it could take for those postal applications.
That's a win for efficiency.
Yeah.
But are there any, catches to these updates?
Ah.
Anything else we should know?
Well, HMRC is getting a bit more careful, I guess you could say, with larger claims, anything over 500 pounds.
Okay.
They might ask for more detailed documentation, so just make sure to keep all your invoices and your proof of purchase organized.
Sound advice. Okay, so all of these changes are great for, employed folks.
Yeah.
What about people that are self-employed?
Mm-hmm.
Do these updates apply to them too?
Unfortunately, not in the same way. Self-employed individuals have to use the self-assessment system, which is a whole different ballgame.
Okay, so if you're self-employed, you'll have to look into that separately.
Yeah.
But for everyone on Payc, these updates are definitely worth paying attention to.
Yeah, for sure.
And here's something that might surprise you. Did you know that you can actually backdate your claims?
That's right. HMRC allows you to go back up to 4 years. So you can still get rebates for the 2021-2022 tax year and beyond. Don't leave that money on the table.
I had no idea. Now, once my claim is approved, how do I actually receive my rebate? How does that work?
Okay, so there are 2 main ways that HMRC handles this.
Okay.
They might adjust your tax code directly through your payroll,
Right.
which means you'll see more take-home pay each month. It's like a little bonus in every paycheck.
Okay, so that's pretty seamless.
Yeah.
What's the other option?
If you're claiming for past years, they'll likely issue you a lump sum refund. It's basically a one-time payment catching you up on what you were owed.
Got it. So either way, it's money back in my pocket, which is always a good thing.
Mm.
But before we, get too excited, let's talk about the why.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so important not to ignore this tool tax rebate? It's easy to think, oh, it's just a few pounds.
Right.
But could it actually be, more significant than that?
Absolutely. It might seem small at first glance, but it can really add up, especially if you claim for multiple years. Let's look at a real-life example. We talked to James, an electrician, who had never bothered claiming before. And when he finally did, he filed for the past 4 years and was surprised to receive a 560-pound refund from HMRC.
Wow, that's not pocket change.
Exactly. Even if you just use that flat rate method, it can make a difference. Sophie, a plumber, she diligently claimed her 120-pound allowance every year.
Uh-huh.
And over 4 years, she received a 96-pound tax refund.
So consistent claiming can really pay off.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a huge sum each year, it all contributes to a healthier bank balance.
Right, exactly. And it's, remember, this is money you're entitled to.
Right.
It's not a handout.
Yeah.
It's simply HMRC recognizing the costs that you incur to do your job.
Okay, I'm convinced I need to look into this, but how do I actually go about claiming? Is it like a complicated bureaucratic nightmare?
No, not at all. HMRC has actually made it pretty straightforward. There are 3 main ways to file your tool tax rebate claim, and each has its own, pros and cons.
All right, let's walk through them. What's the first one?
So the quickest and easiest method, especially if you have a straightforward claim, is to do it online through the HMRC website.
Online is definitely my preference. What are the steps involved?
Okay, so it's pretty simple. You just head over to the HMRC website and log into your personal tax account. You'll need to use your government gateway ID.
Uh-huh.
If you haven't set one of those up yet, you can do that really easily using your national insurance number. Once you're logged in, look for the section on, job-related expenses.
Right.
You'll select tools as the expense type, and then you'll either enter your HMRC-approved flat rate allowance or the total cost of your tools if you're claiming actual expenses.
Right.
If you are going that actual expense route, make sure you upload copies of your receipts as well. And then finally, just review everything carefully, hit submit, And then HMRC will take it from there, either adjust your tax code or issue a rebate if it's for previous years.
That sounds pretty painless. But what if I'm, not so comfortable doing everything online, or I just prefer to handle it like the old-fashioned way? What are my other options?
Well, you've got a couple of other options. If you prefer pen and paper, you can always claim by post
Okay.
using the good old P87 form.
Right, the P87 form.
Yeah, you can download this directly from the HMRC website.
Okay.
Or if you prefer, give them a call and they'll send you a copy.
Okay, so I got my P87 form. What do I do with it?
All right, so you need to fill in your personal details, like your national insurance number and your employer's information.
Right.
Then you enter your tool expenses.
Okay.
Now, if you're using that flat rate allowance, you won't need any receipts, although HMRC might ask you to prove what your job is.
Right.
But if you're claiming actual costs, make sure to attach copies of those receipts to your form.
Got it. So I fill out the form, I attach my receipts if necessary, and then what?
Just pop it in the mail to the address that's listed on the form.
Easy peasy.
Yep. And then it's just a waiting game.
And how long does the postal route usually take?
It can be a bit slower than the online method, typically around 10 to 12 weeks.
Okay, so online's faster, post is more traditional. What's the third option?
All right, so this one's for the people who prefer a bit of extra help. You can always get a tax rebate specialist or an accountant to handle your claim for you.
Okay.
They'll do all the calculations, based on HMRC guidelines, submit everything on your behalf, and even deal with any questions that HMRC might have.
So it's kind of like a hands-off approach,
Right.
but I'm guessing it comes at a cost.
Yeah, they'll typically charge a fee, which is usually a percentage of your rebate.
So you're paying for convenience and expertise.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Now, before we wrap up, are there any common mistakes that people should avoid when filing their claim? We don't want anyone, tripping up and missing out on this valuable rebate.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest pitfalls I see is people not keeping those receipts.
Okay.
I know it's tempting to just toss them in the bin, but if you're claiming actual tool costs, those receipts are like gold.
So organization is key.
Yes.
What else should we watch out for?
Make sure you're only claiming for tools that are 100% for work.
Okay.
HMRC is really strict about this.
Right. No sneaking in those personal expenses.
Exactly. And then double check your employer details and your tax codes. Make sure they're accurate.
Right.
Any little mistake can lead to delays or even a rejection.
Got it. Accuracy is crucial.
Uh-huh.
Any final words of wisdom before we go?
Yes. Don't forget that you can backdate your claim up to 4 years.
Yes.
Don't leave any potential refunds unclaimed.
Right.
And lastly, if your employer has already reimbursed you for your tools, you can't claim tax relief on them.
Okay.
It seems obvious, but, it happens more often than you'd think.
Right. All great advice. So it sounds like being organized, knowing the rules, and paying attention to detail are all really important for this tool tax rebate.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, a huge thank you to ProTax Accountant for sponsoring this insightful conversation about the tool tax rebate.
Yes, thank you.
And remember, everyone, staying informed about your tax rights can really make a difference to your finances. We hope you found this discussion helpful, and we'll see you next time.